There are moments in life that split your world right down the middle. Before and after moments that you carry with you forever. Moments so profound they reshape not just your future but your understanding of who you are and what's possible. Let me tell you about one of those moments, about a man named Marcus Eduardo Delgado, and how a single phone call turned what seemed like his worst nightmare into something he never could have imagined. A story that reminds us that sometimes our greatest fears and our wildest dreams are separated by nothing more than 10 digits dialed at exactly the right moment. Picture this. It's a Tuesday morning in downtown Seattle, the kind of drizzly Pacific Northwest day where the rain doesn't so much fall as it hangs in the air like a fine mist, pattering against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 32nd floor boardroom at Horizon Tech Solutions. The city sprawls below like a circuit board, all glass and steel and ambition, while Marcus sits at the head of that polished mahogany table that cost more than his family's entire yearly income back in El Salvador. His navy suit is crisp, tailored perfectly to his frame. His tie knotted with a precision he applies to everything in his business life, but if you looked closely, really closely, you'd see his hands trembling just slightly as he flips through his presentation notes, the same nervous habit he's had since his first job interview in America 20 years ago. Can you imagine what it feels like to have worked 15 years to earn that chair, clawing your way up from night janitor to assistant manager to department head to vice president to CEO? Only to wake up every morning wondering if today's the day someone decides you don't belong there, that your success was somehow a mistake the universe is ready to correct? The quarterly board meeting is in full swing, 12 faces staring at him expectantly from around that imposing table. Venture capitalists in $1,000 suits, tech industry veterans with stock portfolios worth more than small countries, brilliant minds who built their fortunes on innovation and risk-taking. All of them hanging on his every word as he clicks through slides showing record-breaking profits that exceed even their most optimistic projections. His accent, still there after 2 decades in America, still coloring his words with the warm cadence of his childhood in San Salvador, still making some people assume he's less intelligent than he is, fills the room as he explains their expansion into renewable energy markets, their partnerships with major utilities, their breakthrough in solar panel efficiency that could revolutionize the industry. The numbers are staggering. 43% growth year over year, employee satisfaction scores that other companies would kill for, innovation metrics that put them ahead of competitors twice their size. But even as he speaks with confidence about market projections and strategic partnerships, about the 300 jobs they've created in the past year alone, there's this underlying current of tension, this weight he carries that none of his American-born colleagues will ever understand, the constant awareness that success can make you more visible, and visibility can make you a target. What would you do if success felt like borrowed time? If every achievement came with a whisper that maybe you're just a visitor in your own life, playing a role you were never meant to have? Marcus clicks to the slide showing their latest product launch, a revolutionary battery storage system that can power an entire neighborhood during outages, when he notices Janet, the head of HR, slip quietly into the room and whisper something to David Chen, the board chairman. David's face goes pale, and he glances at Marcus with an expression that makes his stomach drop. But Marcus pushes forward, explaining how their technology could transform disaster relief efforts, how communities hit by hurricanes or wildfires could maintain power for weeks instead of days, how they're not just building a business but potentially saving lives. The irony isn't lost on him that he's talking about helping communities weather storms while his own storm is about to hit. Have you ever had that feeling, that prickle of awareness that tells you something terrible is about to happen, even when everything around you appears normal? Then it happens. The boardroom doors burst open. Not the gentle push of a secretary with coffee, not the apologetic entrance of a late board member, but the authoritative slam of people who don't need permission to enter, who carry the weight of federal authority like a weapon. 3 officers in navy windbreakers stride in, their boots echoing against the Italian marble floor like hammer strikes, each footstep a countdown to Marcus's worst fears coming true. The lead officer, a stern woman with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun that makes her look like a school principal turned federal agent, surveys the room with the practiced eye of someone who's done this hundreds of times before. The room goes dead silent, the kind of silence that makes your ears ring, where the humming of the air conditioning suddenly sounds deafening and you can hear your own heartbeat thundering in your chest like a war drum. Marcus feels the blood drain from his face as she approaches him with a manila folder in her hands, the kind of folder that contains documents that can change lives, destroy dreams, separate families. Have you ever felt time slow down so much that you can count the seconds between your heartbeats, where each breath feels like it might be your last normal one, where the world takes on that surreal quality of a nightmare you can't wake up from? Marcus Eduardo Delgado? She asks, though they both know she already knows the answer, her voice cutting through the boardroom like a blade, professional and cold and carrying the weight of federal authority that can't be argued with or negotiated away. Marcus nods, his mouth suddenly dry as sandpaper. His carefully prepared presentation forgotten as 12 board members stare at him with expressions ranging from shock to uncomfortable embarrassment to barely concealed relief that it's not them in the crosshairs. Some of them avert their eyes, studying their phones or the papers in front of them with sudden intense interest, as if not looking might somehow make this moment disappear, might let them pretend they don't know what's happening. Janet covers her mouth with her hand, her eyes wide with the same horror you'd see at a car accident. David Chen starts to stand, then sits back down, unsure whether he should intervene or if that would only make things worse. Can you imagine the crushing weight of realizing that all your success, all your hard work, all those late nights building this company from nothing into a powerhouse that employs over 800 people? None of it matters when 3 strangers can walk in and reduce you to just another case number, another problem to be processed and removed. "Sir, you need to come with us," the officer continues, her partner already moving to Marcus's side while the third positions himself by the door, a human barrier between Marcus and any hope of escape. The folder she's holding seems to glow under the boardroom's LED lights, containing documents that could unravel everything he's built. Deportation orders, maybe, or evidence of some paperwork error that's been lurking in the system for months, waiting to destroy him. Marcus stands slowly, his legs feeling like they're made of concrete, his mind racing through 1,000 scenarios while his body moves in slow motion. His green card application has been pending for 18 months, caught in the bureaucratic maze that decides who gets to stay and who gets sent back to countries they barely remember, lost in a system that treats human lives like inventory to be managed and processed. He thinks about his mother, still living in the same tiny house in San Salvador where he grew up, how proud she was when he called to tell her about becoming CEO, how she bragged to all the neighbors about her son who made it in America. What do you think goes through someone's mind when their American dream is being handcuffed in front of their colleagues? When success becomes a spotlight that makes you an even bigger target? When the very visibility you work so hard to achieve becomes the thing that destroys you? The walk to the elevator feels like a funeral march, each step taking him further from the life he's built and closer to an uncertain future that could mean leaving behind everything he's worked for, everyone who depends on him. Marcus can hear whispers starting behind him, can feel the weight of stares from employees who have looked up to him, who have celebrated bonuses he secured for them, who have trusted his leadership through market downturns and economic uncertainty. They're peeking out of offices and cubicles, watching their CEO being escorted away by federal agents, probably wondering what this means for their jobs, their security, their future. His assistant, Sarah, a brilliant young woman who's worked with him for 3 years and knows his schedule better than he does, stands frozen by her desk, her hand covering her mouth, tears already forming in her eyes. She's the one who reminds him about his mother's birthday, who makes sure he eats lunch when he's too busy to remember, who has been learning Spanish so she can better communicate with some of their Latino employees. The elevator dings cheerfully, a sound so normal and mundane that it feels obscene in this moment of life-altering crisis, like hearing children laugh at a funeral. As the doors close, Marcus catches a glimpse of his reflection in the polished steel, still looking like a CEO on the outside. His suit still perfect, his posture still commanding, but his eyes betraying the terror of a man watching his world collapse in real time. Have you ever wondered how quickly everything you've worked for can disappear? How the ground beneath your feet can turn to quicksand without warning? How a lifetime of building can be undone in a single moment? The ride down 32 floors happens in complete silence except for the mechanical hum of the elevator and the crackling of the officers' radios, static-filled voices discussing other cases, other lives being disrupted. Marcus stares at the numbers counting down, 31, 30, 29. Each floor taking him further from the life he's built and closer to an uncertain future that could mean leaving behind not just his job but his home, his community, his entire identity. His mind floods with memories. The day he arrived in America with nothing but a suitcase, his mother's rosary, and $43 in his pocket, sleeping on his cousin's couch in a one-bedroom apartment shared by 6 people. The night he graduated from community college with honors while working 2 jobs, one cleaning offices and another stocking shelves at a grocery store, studying by flashlight so he wouldn't wake his roommates. The moment he pitched his first business idea to investors, who saw past his accent to his vision, who believed in his dreams when he barely believed in them himself. The day he hired his first employee, a recent college graduate who reminded him of himself 20 years earlier, hungry and determined and willing to work twice as hard as anyone else to prove he belonged. How do you reconcile 20 years of calling a place home with the possibility that it was never really home at all? That all this time you've been living on borrowed time in someone else's country? The elevator reaches the ground floor, and Marcus steps into the lobby he's walked through thousands of times. The same marble floors and glass walls and corporate art that once felt like symbols of his success now feeling like a museum display of a life that's already over. Employees part like the Red Sea as they pass, some pretending to be busy with their phones, others staring openly with a mixture of sympathy and relief that it's not them, that their legal status isn't in question, that they get to go home to their families tonight while his future hangs in the balance. Marcus recognizes faces he's seen every day for years. Maria from accounting, who always asks about his mother. Tom from IT, who helped him set up his first computer when he was promoted to management. Jennifer from marketing, who grew up in a family of immigrants and understands the weight he carries. The security guard, James, an older black man who has shared morning greetings with Marcus for 5 years, who talks about his grandchildren and complains about the Seahawks defense, looks away as they pass, unable to meet his eyes, probably thinking about his own grandfather who migrated north during the Great Migration, understanding better than most what it means to be seen as not quite belonging no matter how long you've been there. The revolving doors spin, depositing them onto the busy Seattle sidewalk where life continues as normal. People rushing to meetings, grabbing overpriced coffee from food trucks, complaining about the rain and the traffic, completely unaware that a man's entire existence is being deconstructed just steps away from their daily routines. Isn't it strange how the world keeps spinning even when yours has completely stopped? How millions of people can go about their business while your life is falling apart in broad daylight? They're walking toward a black SUV parked at the curb, the kind of vehicle that screams federal authority, when Marcus notices a small crowd forming. People with smartphones are already recording, turning his private nightmare into public entertainment, into content for social media platforms where his humiliation will be shared and commented on and forgotten within hours. He can imagine the headlines already. Tech CEO arrested by immigration officers. Another immigrant success story ends in deportation. American dream becomes American nightmare. The officers seem accustomed to this attention, moving with practiced efficiency while Marcus feels exposed and vulnerable, a specimen under a microscope. But then something extraordinary happens. A sound that cuts through the urban noise like a church bell on Sunday morning, like a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. Marcus's phone, still in his jacket pocket, starts ringing with a distinct tone he's assigned to international calls, a sound that usually fills him with dread because it often means problems with overseas suppliers or manufacturing delays. The lead officer, Agent Martinez, according to the badge that Marcus can now see clearly, raises her hand to stop the procession, her professional demeanor flickering for just a moment. "You can answer that," she says, though her tone suggests it's more curiosity than kindness driving the decision, as if she's seen enough of these situations to know that sometimes the unexpected happens at the most critical moments. Marcus pulls out his phone with shaking hands, and when he sees the number, his heart nearly stops. It's a Washington, D.C. area code, but not one he recognizes, not one that's in his contacts or his call history. Who could be calling him at this exact moment? And why does Agent Martinez look like she's seen a ghost? Like she recognizes something about this call that Marcus doesn't understand yet. "Marcus Delgado," he answers, his voice barely steady, while 3 immigration officers and a growing crowd of curious onlookers watch this surreal street corner drama unfold like a movie scene that's too strange to be fiction. The voice on the other end is crisp, authoritative, with the kind of confidence that comes from wielding real power, from working in the corridors where decisions are made that affect millions of lives. "Mr. Delgado, this is Margaret Foster from Senator Patricia Williams' office. The senator needs to speak with you immediately about your pending immigration application and a matter of urgent national importance." The words hit Marcus like lightning, each one carrying weight and possibility he can barely comprehend. Senator Williams chairs the Immigration Committee, one of the most powerful people in Congress when it comes to immigration policy. Someone whose word can override bureaucratic processes and change lives with a single phone call. Her office calling him right now, at this exact moment, seems impossible, like divine intervention or cosmic coincidence or the kind of plot twist that only happens in movies. Can you imagine the confusion, the desperate hope mixed with disbelief, when salvation might be calling just as your world is ending, when the same government that sent officers to arrest you might also be the source of your rescue? Agent Martinez's radio crackles to life, and Marcus watches her face change as she listens to whatever voice is coming through her earpiece. Her professional composure wavering for just a moment, replaced by something that looks almost like confusion, maybe even concern. She holds up a finger, signaling Marcus to wait, then steps away for a hushed conversation with her partners. Their voices too low for him to hear, but their body language suggesting this is not how these situations usually go. The crowd on the sidewalk has grown larger, people with phones out recording every moment, probably live streaming this drama to Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, turning his private nightmare into public entertainment, into a story that will be shared and reshared until it takes on a life of its own. A local news van pulls up to the curb, its satellite dish extending toward the sky like a mechanical flower blooming, and Marcus realizes that whatever happens next will be broadcast to thousands of people, that his story is no longer his own but belongs to the public sphere where narratives are shaped by sound bites and social media algorithms. What would you think if you were watching this scene unfold? Seeing a man in an expensive suit caught between immigration officers and a mysterious phone call that might change everything, witnessing the kind of real-life drama that usually only exists in headlines and news reports. The voice on the phone continues, and with each word, Marcus feels the ground shifting beneath him again, but this time in a completely different direction, like an earthquake that rebuilds rather than destroys. Mr. Delgado, there's been a significant development regarding your case. Your company's groundbreaking work in renewable energy storage has caught the attention of the Department of Homeland Security, not as a threat, but as a critical asset to national security infrastructure. Your innovations in battery technology could revolutionize emergency response systems and help protect critical facilities during natural disasters and other crises. Your pending green card application has been expedited and approved as of this morning under provisions for individuals whose work serves the national interest. The words wash over him like a tidal wave of impossibility, each sentence rewriting his understanding of what's happening, transforming his arrest into something that feels more like a rescue. But there's more, and the voice continues with information that makes his head spin. More importantly, there's a proposal on the table that would make you eligible for an expedited path to citizenship based on your contributions to American energy independence and national security. The senator believes that people like you, who create jobs and drive innovation while strengthening our country's infrastructure, represent exactly the kind of immigration success story we need to be celebrating and protecting, not hindering with bureaucratic delays. How can the same government that sent officers to arrest him now be offering him not just residency, but a path to citizenship, recognition as a national asset rather than a problem to be solved? Agent Martinez returns, her entire demeanor transformed in the span of 5 minutes, the stern law enforcement officer replaced by someone who looks genuinely apologetic, almost embarrassed by the situation she's found herself in. She clears her throat and addresses Marcus with a respect that wasn't there when she first walked into his boardroom. Her voice softer now, more human than official. "Sir, I've just received orders to stand down. There's been a significant development in your case that changes everything. You're free to return to your office, and I want to personally apologize for any distress this situation has caused. Sometimes the system works in mysterious ways, and it appears that your case has been flagged at the highest levels for immediate resolution. But the phone call isn't over yet, and the voice from DC has more surprises in store, more life-changing information that Marcus can barely process. Mr. Delgado, the senator would like to arrange a meeting with you next week to discuss a new initiative, a bipartisan task force on immigrant entrepreneurship that would advise Congress on immigration policy reform. She believes your story and your success represent exactly the kind of American dream we need to be fostering, not hindering. You'd be serving as a special advisor, helping to shape policies that could help thousands of other immigrants who are building businesses and creating jobs but living in legal limbo. Could this really be happening? Or is this some kind of elaborate dream born from the stress of the moment, a fantasy his mind created to cope with the trauma of arrest and deportation? The immigration officers begin packing up their paperwork, their official documents and deportation orders suddenly irrelevant, obstacles that have been swept away by forces operating at levels far above their pay grade. Agent Martinez hands Marcus her business card, a gesture that seems almost comical given that 5 minutes ago she was preparing to arrest him. If you need anything, any assistance with paperwork or documentation of today's events, please don't hesitate to call, she says, as if they're colleagues now rather than adversaries. Marcus takes the card with numb fingers, still trying to process the complete reversal of his reality, the transformation of his worst nightmare into what might be the best day of his professional life. The crowd begins to disperse, disappointed that the drama ended without arrests or confrontation, returning to their own lives and problems. But the news crew remains, the reporter already preparing questions for the interview that will make Marcus's story part of the national conversation about immigration, success, and what it means to be American in the 21st century. How do you explain to people that your worst nightmare and your wildest dreams just collided on a Seattle sidewalk in the span of 15 minutes? That the same phone that usually brings you stress and problems just delivered salvation? Sarah appears at his side. She must have rushed down from the 32nd floor, probably taking the stairs because the elevator would have been too slow. Her face flushed from running, relief and joy radiating from her like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Mr. Delgado, what just happened? The whole office is going crazy with rumors. Someone said you were being deported, someone else said it was all a mistake. And now Jennifer from marketing is saying something about the Senate calling you. The phones haven't stopped ringing. Reporters, business partners, even your mother called from El Salvador because someone posted a video on Facebook and she saw it. She's talking fast, the way she does when she's overwhelmed. Her words tumbling over each other in her eagerness to understand what's happening. Marcus looks at her, this young woman who has been like a daughter to him, who represents the next generation of Americans who see diversity as strength rather than threat, and he realizes that he's not just fighting for himself but for all the young people who look up to him, who see in his success proof that America still offers opportunities to those willing to work for them. How do you explain to someone that your worst nightmare and your wildest dreams just collided on a Seattle sidewalk in the span of 10 minutes? That the universe sometimes delivers miracles disguised as disasters. Back in the boardroom, the quarterly meeting has dissolved into chaos, 12 board members trying to process what they just witnessed and what it means for the company they've invested in. Some are on their phones with lawyers, others are calculating potential PR impacts. A few are quietly discussing succession plans in case Marcus had actually been deported. But as Marcus steps off the elevator, still in shock from the morning's whiplash of emotions, still trying to process the phone call that changed everything, something remarkable happens that will stay with him for the rest of his life. The entire office erupts in applause, a sound that starts small and builds like thunder. Employees pouring out of offices and conference rooms and cubicles, lining the hallways with faces full of relief and joy and pride. They're clapping and cheering, some wiping away tears they didn't know they were crying, others holding hastily made signs that read, "Welcome home, boss," and "Horizon stands with Marcus," and "Immigration makes America great." The sound is deafening, overwhelming, a symphony of support that drowns out every doubt and fear that has haunted him for 20 years in America, every moment of feeling like an outsider, every whisper that he didn't belong. Maria from accounting is crying openly. Tom from IT is pumping his fist in the air like his team just won the Super Bowl, and Jennifer from marketing is filming everything on her phone while shouting, "This is what America looks like." Have you ever experienced a moment so powerful that it rewrites your understanding of who you are and where you belong, that makes you realize that home isn't just a place but a community of people who choose to stand with you when everything falls apart? The applause continues for what feels like hours but is probably only a few minutes, employees cheering not just for Marcus but for the idea that hard work and innovation and community building matter more than country of origin, that success should be celebrated rather than punished, that America is stronger when it embraces the talents of people from everywhere. Marcus stands in the hallway, overwhelmed by emotion, thinking about the scared young man who arrived 20 years ago with nothing but hope and determination, wondering what that version of himself would think about this moment, about the hundreds of people cheering for him, about the phone call from a senator's office, about the transformation of his arrest into his greatest triumph. The board meeting reconvenes an hour later. But the energy in the room has completely shifted. The atmosphere changed from concern and damage control to excitement and opportunity. Where there was once uncomfortable silence and averted eyes, there's now animated discussion about the possibilities this publicity might create, about the company's potential role in national energy policy, about Marcus's upcoming meeting with Senator Williams and what it could mean for Horizon Tech Solutions. The same people who looked away when he was being arrested are now eager to hear his thoughts on expanding their government contracts and leveraging their newfound political connections, their discomfort forgotten in the face of potential profit and prestige. It's amazing how quickly perspective can change when power dynamics shift, isn't it? How the same story can be seen as a liability one moment and an asset the next. Later that evening, Marcus sits in his downtown apartment, the same space he's called home for 8 years, still wearing his navy suit but with his tie loosened and his jacket draped over a chair, staring out at the Seattle skyline as the city lights twinkle to life like stars fallen to earth. His phone has been ringing all day, reporters wanting interviews, business partners offering congratulations, competitors probably wondering how he managed to turn an immigration arrest into a publicity coup. His mother in San Salvador crying tears of joy when he called to tell her the news, barely able to speak between sobs of relief and pride. The view from his window includes the Space Needle and Elliott Bay, the mountains in the distance and the ferries crossing the water, all the landmarks that have become part of his daily landscape, part of his identity as a seatlight, an American, a success story written against the backdrop of one of the most beautiful cities in the world. But in the quiet of his apartment, surrounded by the photographs and mementos of his journey from immigrant janitor to CEO, he's reflecting on something deeper than just the day's dramatic events, something more profound than career success or political recognition. For the first time in 20 years, he doesn't feel like he's living on borrowed time, like he's a guest in someone else's country. He doesn't feel like an imposter in his own success, doesn't wake up wondering if today's the day someone decides he doesn't belong. He feels finally and completely like he belongs here, like Seattle and America and this life he's built are truly his, not temporarily but permanently, not conditionally but absolutely. Isn't it remarkable how a single day can transform not just your circumstances, but your entire sense of self, your understanding of home and belonging and what it means to be American? The next morning, Marcus wakes up to find his story has gone viral in ways he never could have imagined, spreading across social media platforms like wildfire, becoming a symbol of something larger than his individual experience. #Immigrant CEO is trending on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, with thousands of people sharing their own immigration stories, their own experiences of feeling caught between worlds, their own struggles with documentation and legal status and the fear of deportation that haunts so many communities across America. The video of his near-arrest and dramatic reprieve has been viewed millions of times, shared by celebrities and politicians and ordinary people who see in his story something hopeful and inspiring, proof that the system can work, that merit can triumph over bureaucracy, that America still offers opportunities for those willing to fight for them. Comments pour in from around the world. Immigrants in Europe and Australia and Canada sharing similar stories. Young people saying his example gives them hope for their own dreams. Established Americans expressing shame at how the immigration system treats people like Marcus. Sometimes the most personal moments become the most universal ones, don't they? Touching something deep in the human experience that transcends borders and languages and legal status. The story takes on additional dimensions as more details emerge about Marcus's journey and his company's impact on American innovation and job creation. Tech journalists write in-depth profiles about Horizon Tech Solutions and their breakthrough technologies. Business magazines analyze the economic impact of immigrant entrepreneurs on the American economy. And policy experts use his case as an example of how immigration law often works against American interests by threatening to deport exactly the kind of people the country needs to remain competitive in the global economy. Cable news shows invite immigration lawyers and policy experts to discuss his case, using it as a jumping-off point for broader conversations about comprehensive immigration reform, about the economic benefits of immigration, about the human cost of a system that treats families and communities as abstract policy problems rather than real people with real lives and real contributions to American society. His story becomes a case study in business schools, a talking point for politicians from both parties, a symbol of both the problems and the possibilities inherent in American immigration policy. Who would have thought that his worst day could become the catalyst for national conversations about who belongs in America and what it means to be a success story worth protecting rather than a problem to be solved? A week later, Marcus finds himself in a conference room in the Hart Senate office building in Washington, D.C., sitting across from Senator Williams and a bipartisan group of lawmakers who are genuinely interested in his perspective on immigration reform, who see him not as a talking point or a political symbol but as someone whose experience and expertise can help them craft better policies. Senator Williams, a tall woman with silver hair and kind eyes who has been fighting for comprehensive immigration reform for decades, listens intently as Marcus describes the psychological toll of living in legal limbo, the way uncertainty affects not just individuals but entire communities and industries that depend on immigrant entrepreneurs and workers. He shares stories of other business owners he knows who are afraid to expand their companies or make long-term investments because they don't know if they'll be allowed to stay in the country, of brilliant engineers and scientists who are considering leaving America for countries with more predictable immigration systems, of children who were brought here as babies and know no other country but live in constant fear that they could be sent to places they've never known. He's no longer just speaking for himself, but for millions of immigrants who are building businesses, creating jobs, contributing to American communities, and strengthening the social fabric while living in the shadow of uncertainty and fear. His story has become a catalyst for change, a real-world example of how current immigration policies sometimes work against America's own interests, against the values of opportunity and hard work and innovation that the country claims to represent. Who would have thought that his worst day could become the beginning of something so much larger than himself? A platform for advocating not just for his own future but for the futures of millions of others who share his experience. As he shares his recommendations with the committee, specific pathways for immigrant entrepreneurs who create jobs and drive innovation, comprehensive reforms to the green card system that would eliminate decades-long backlogs, protections for people who have built their lives and businesses in America but live in constant fear of deportation, programs that would harness the talents of immigrants rather than wasting them through bureaucratic delays and arbitrary enforcement. Marcus realizes that everything that happened that Tuesday morning in Seattle was necessary, part of a larger story that was always meant to unfold this way. The fear, the humiliation, the dramatic reversal, even the viral video that invaded his privacy and turned his personal crisis into public spectacle, all led to this moment where he has a platform to make a difference not just for himself, but for everyone who has ever felt like a stranger in their own home, everyone who has contributed to American prosperity while being treated as a second-class resident, everyone who dreams of belonging somewhere completely and unconditionally. The committee members ask thoughtful questions, take detailed notes, and promise to incorporate his recommendations into upcoming legislation, treating him not as a victim or a charity case but as an expert whose insights are valuable for crafting policies that serve both immigrants and the country that benefits from their contributions. Sometimes our greatest challenges become our greatest opportunities to serve something bigger than ourselves, and that transformation, from personal crisis to public service, from individual struggle to collective action, is what makes all the struggle worthwhile, what gives meaning to the pain and purpose to the journey, don't you think?